Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. My name is John Pieranunzi, and this is the opening swing. Unfortunately, as you can probably tell, my webcam is not working today, and I don't have a good explanation as to why. I think it has something to do with, I don't know, software. But regardless, we're gonna move on without it because that's what we do. Looking at our news, Europe was pretty busy. We had the EU GDP, EU industrial production. Europe is modestly firmer, and several numbers out of other countries. Overall, Europe is modestly firmer. But looking into the U.S. hours, we have our major big news driver this week at 8:30 is the CPI. We also have retail sales. Then at 10 o'clock, a few other numbers. We have business inventories, a housing market index, the petroleum report at 10:30, and we also have Kashkari at noon Eastern, all times Eastern, as well as a 4-month bill auction. But the key figure that we're looking for is the CPI, which comes out at 8:30. That'll be our major driver today. And I expect it will be busy. Let's take a look at our monthly chart quickly. Let me bring it up here. Okay, the key on the monthly chart that I've been mentioning, we're within the April range. April was a very wide-ranging month. We're within the April range. I've talked about how we're in balance on this time frame. However, the more time we spend above the 5200s, 5250s region, basically the upper quartile of the April range, the more time we spend up here, the more bullish it gets, the more bullish skew this balance has, and the better odds it has to get a test of the ATHs. I mentioned yesterday I'm looking for an inside month, and I still am. However, I'm just noting that the more time we spend up here not rejecting prices, the more bullish it gets. Let's take a look at the weekly chart. Weekly chart is pretty aggressively bullish. We're easily making new highs on the weekly chart, easily just not even getting close to our prior lows. So a much more, more bullish look on this time frame. Our next target on this time frame is the 85s, this weekly high, followed by the 92s, the O's, and then the 07s. And those are areas I'm expecting the resistance to come in, like pretty much between, if we continue between 5300 and 07, that to me would be sort of the last line of defense for any sellers. If we get through that, we're looking at the all-time highs. Let's move on to the daily chart. Find it quickly here. So here's our daily chart, full session candles. What's important to see here, we'll just focus on the May range so far, which is this profile right here. May has been very bullish, very bullish. Since we made the breakout, which was last week, breaking out of the prior week's range, it has just been an orderly auction higher. We're seeing pullbacks quickly bought up and old highs are taken out. Yesterday we got the break of the one time framing on the full session. RTH held the prior day's low, but we got the test below, and then we continued again for higher prices, and we're holding them. So again, as long as we see this orderly auction higher, we just expect it to continue. At least I do. And again, I'll reiterate, how do we know if this is starting to change? If we get a high that we cannot retest and we start to make lower lows, that's a sign that the music has changed. But as of right now, we're still dancing to the same music we have been since last week, which is higher prices. Our next target, as I've said, is the 85s. This is an important target, pushing above the 85s, and we're looking at 92s. And like I said, the 07s up here, above, like between this 85 to 07 broad area and really 5300s to 07s, that's where I would expect the resistance to come in if we encounter it. If we do not encounter it and we're able to push through and hold like above the 5300s and above the 07s, then we're looking at the all-time highs. That's what I'm seeing on this chart. Again, we see the structure we have beneath us, which is this HVN around the 50s, and this one, which is our prior week's VPOC. So this is the structure beneath us. Let's go over it in a little more detail. Okay, this is our 4x5 PNF, which is a larger term PNF here, and What I'm just looking at in this chart is the price structure, impulse, pullback, continuation, and then again yesterday, same behavior, pullback, continuation. We were looking out for this yesterday. This is something we planned for, a test below the prior day's low and then reversion higher to our big target, the 64s. That's what we got yesterday, which just kind of reiterates the sort of environment we're in, which is pullbacks get bought up, old highs get retested. And again, like I said, as long as we keep being able to test the most recent high and hold the most recent pullback, I'll expect the bullishness to continue, with our next targets, as I've said, being 85s, 92s, O's, 07s. So let's go back, let's go to our 8 box and plan a little bit more granularly. Okay, here is our 8 box, actually a 2x4 PNF. And I'll mark out some areas that I'm thinking are important today. Well, the most key area for me is going to be right in this region, which is the 64s. That was our former double top. Below the 64s, we have our 50 area. Then we have the prior day's low. Then we have the 20s, or I'm sorry, the 30s region, which is right around in here. Falling down to the 20s, which is yesterday's low, down to the 12s. Then we have the O's, the support that I'm expecting in the O's on any test, and below that we have the 91s to 88s. Above here we have obviously 85s, 92s, O's, then the area from O's to 07s. Then above that we have our ATHs. These are the important tests I'm looking for. Let's go over a bullish scenario first because I'm bullish. So barring any, we could have any kind of a test lower. We could test to 64s and continue. We could test down to 50s and continue. We could test, potentially even lower. We could take this, 41 low, yesterday's RTH low, and get as low as 30s. But I am expecting support, again, on any push lower that reverts higher and starts making higher highs. I'll expect it to be another one of these pullbacks. So we have to be on the alert for that. Just like what we got here, push lower, continue, and by the end of the day, we're making new highs. So any pullback or any test lower that might happen on the number that tests lower and quickly gets refuted, I would be open to continuation higher and just a resumption of what we're seeing. So I'm going to flag that just as an overall larger expectation that I have. And again, how will I know that that's not the case? If we try and are unable to retest the highs. That's what I would kind of signify. But anyway, so as long as if we get a test and we end up back above these 64s, then I will be targeting this high. If we get that high and we're able to hold out of range and above the 64s, I will most expect this to end up being a grind higher to these targets. I'm not sure which target we'll hit today, but if we get this action, if we get a test and then a push back above 64s that's able to pressure the 74s, I'll expect price to grind. And it'll potentially look something like this. That would be vulnerable. We have to flag, as always, for a reversion lower. Maybe gets back into range, maybe doesn't, but regardless, fails to get that recent high and starts making lower highs, at which point we would be aware that the bullishness could be tempering and we'd be open to targets below getting hit if we fail to get the prior high. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of if we hold above 64s and we're able to take the overnight high, wherever that may be, I would be expecting a grind. What's another way that it could happen? This could happen with a very quick test that very quickly refutes higher above 85s, smaller pullback, and then the grind could start at higher prices. That's a possibility. We could get a quick repricing higher if the number comes out in a way that's favorable, and then we grind at these prices. If we do that, like I said, O's to 07s is an area that I'm expecting resistance if we trade it today. some type of resistance and potentially reversion. If we get the whole way up there, then we'll probably hold above the prior day's range into the close. If we can't get to the O's, then it's more possible for me to see reversion. But anyway, those are two possibilities I'm seeing. One would be a test lower that maybe is really quick, but then quickly gets above 64s and starts to grind. Another possibility is a very quick repricing higher that grinds from a higher price. So those are the two pretty bullish ideas I'm looking for. I'll flag that if we do get above the 08s today or any day, that very clearly I'm looking for the all-time highs. Above 08s, I'm looking for the all-time highs. That is as long as we don't get above and reject the 08s. But, you know, like I said, O's to 08s, 07s, very important price for me. How could this actually become bearish? How could this change? Well, it would have to happen. I think it would happen with a number that comes out off kilter if the number is really wrong. So let's not discount the fact that we could get a very small test higher that doesn't mean anything and then quick reversion lower. I think that would go to 64s. If we get something like a test and then reversion to 64s, then we'd see the expected support attempt to push higher at 64s. But if it's unable to get above 74s, then we're thinking lower prices. At this point, settlement is taken. So then if we get below the 50 or the 64s, then we're looking for all of our targets below. We know what those are. The 50s, this area. If the 50s get taken, then we're looking at the RTH low yesterday, which is 41s. I would expect support around 41s, where we could get potentially the reversion that I was talking about. However, if we get an attempt at that reversion and it's failing around 64s, and getting back near the lows, then we could see lower prices again. If we break the RTH low, then I'm looking for the 30s. And I'm looking for some type of support in the middle of the zone around 25s. I am not expecting this low to go today. It's very possible, but I'm not expecting it to happen. If it happens, I would again expect a test and then support. However, it might not. If we break these 12s and we don't find support, breaking the 12s and we cannot find support, then the 91s to 88s are the next target. And if we get below there, I'll just be going zone to zone. But unless something strange happens with the number, I would not see this getting that bearish today. Could happen. That's why we plan for it. That's why we talk about this. But I'm not personally expecting it today. I think we're likely to see one of the first two scenarios, which could be a mild grind that I talked about, or like a mild grind that holds above 74s, or a quick repricing that grinds at higher prices. Those are my two most expected ideas. But again, CPI could change everything. So I want to go over some things from out to a couple different out to 1 or 2 vol, which we just did. So that's what I got for you today. You know, it's always harder to kind of handicap things on a day where we might have a big news release that could change things, but we try. The most important thing for me on a number like this, I'll add the first thing I want to see is whether or not price is directional. Is price directional? Do we leave an SOC and move away from it and start taking out targets in that direction? In that case, then, you know, for me, it's just a directional trade. But however, if the number comes out and we continually cross over the SOC, don't really make any directional movement, I'll usually stand by and just wait to see what happens. But that's how I approach these things. It's changed a lot over the years. Back in the day, I was a much more news-focused trader. Now I'm very different, but you know, you evolve. But this is what I'm looking at today. Mostly, I just want to see how this number comes out. I want to see what they give us and what we can do with it. So let's do that. I want to wish everyone luck today. I want to wish everyone a great day. Hope they have a great day in progress. And of course, as always, if you can, do your best today to make someone else smile, because that's how you make good days happen. So let's get out there, guys. Clock some ticks. CPI day. Let's be a little better than yesterday. Have a good one. Bye-bye.